The ancient history of Britain is not a single story but two very different chapters. The first part is prehistoric Britain, a time that began when the first humans reached these islands about 42,000 years ago. The second starts with the arrival of the Romans in 43 AD, marking the beginning of recorded history. Before then, there was no written language to record the lives of the people who lived here. Almost everything we know about ancient Britain is based on archaeological finds. And in this video, we'll show you the 15 most incredible discoveries made across Britain. From the largest Viking poop to the mysterious witches' marks, each discovery has a story of its own. Number 15. The Lloyds Bank coprolite, the so-called Lloyds Bank coprolite, was discovered in 1972 by construction workers when they were digging the foundations for a new Lloyds Bank branch in York. And it is unlike almost any other discovery from the Viking Age, because it's a Viking defecation, or, in simple words, poop, and not just any poop, but the largest fossilized human poop ever discovered, measuring about 19.5 centimeters, or 8 inches long. It dates back to the 9th century, when York was one of the most important Viking settlements in England and was known as Jorvik. Well, many would probably expect a sword, a helmet, or a chest full of silver to tell us about Viking life. But it was this ancient pile of poop that did exactly that. The damp, waterlogged soil preserved it for more than 1,000 years, something that almost never happens with human waste. When experts finally examined it, they found hundreds of whipworm eggs that its owner suffered from a severe intestinal parasite infection. Scientists also found pollen grains and cereal bran, revealing a diet made up largely of bread and porridge. As strange as it sounds, very few Viking discoveries have painted such a clear picture of what ordinary people ate and the health problems they lived with over 1,000 years ago. Today, it can still be seen at the Jorvik Viking Center in York. Number 14. The grave of Richard III. King Richard III was a very controversial ruler. To some, he was a ruthless king who seized the throne through bloodshed. To others, he was simply the last Plantagenet king of England, defeated at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485. Whatever the truth may be, one mystery remained for more than 5 centuries, where he had been buried. That finally changed in August 2012, when archaeologists from the University of Leicester began the Looking for Richard project at the site of the old Greyfriars Friary in Leicester. What they discovered was Richard III's skeleton. The grave was surprisingly shallow and so cramped that his head had been forced to one side. Instead of being neatly cut, the bottom of the grave was rounded, suggesting the burial had been carried out in haste. What was even more surprising was that years of nearby construction and stone removal somehow failed to disturb the remains. While the skeleton survived almost completely intact, the feet were missing, most likely lost after the friary was demolished. Today, the grave is preserved beneath the King Richard III Visitor Center, where everyone can see it. Number 13. Witches' marks and curses on the walls during the ancient days of Britain. If someone wanted to protect their home from witches or evil spirits, they did not call the police or lock their doors, but they carved symbols into the walls, believing those marks could keep danger away. That belief resurfaced in an unexpected way at Gainsborough Old Hall in Lincolnshire, a Tudor manor dating to the late 15th century. Over 2 years of research, Rick Berry, a volunteer with English Heritage, found and catalogued around 20 protective carvings, most of them hidden throughout the servants' wing. Among them were pentangles to ward off evil, overlapping Marian marks shaped like the letter V, believed to call upon the Virgin Mary for protection, and hexafoils, which people believed could trap demons. And what's even more puzzling is that researchers also found rare curse inscriptions, something English Heritage had never recorded at any of its other historic sites. One of them showed the name of former owner William Hickman written upside down, a practice once believed to bring a curse upon the person. But who taught them these symbols? And did they truly keep evil away? Number 12. The mysterious Silbury Hill. It's still a puzzle who ordered Silbury Hill to be built, what it was meant for, or why thousands of people spent so much time raising it from the ground. That is what has puzzled archaeologists for decades. Standing in Wiltshire, within the Stonehenge, Avebury and Associated Sites World Heritage Site, Silbury Hill rises about 98 feet high and stretches nearly 535 feet across, making it the largest prehistoric man-made mound in Europe. Its smooth, grass-covered shape almost resembles a giant green pyramid, although no chambers, tombs, or treasures have ever been found inside. Curiosity about the mound goes back centuries. The first tunnel was dug in 1776, followed by two more major investigations over the next 300 years. Instead of finding its purpose, archaeologists learned that the hill had been built in 3 separate stages, suggesting it was an enormous project that changed over time. Earlier excavations also caused collapses, leaving a crater near the summit and making further digging far more difficult. Even after centuries of research, Silbury Hill continues to guard the secret of why it was built at all. Number 11. The Leicestershire Bark Shield. Iron Age warriors are usually imagined carrying heavy shields made from wood or metal. That is exactly why this discovery shocked archaeologists. In 2015, while working in Leicestershire, they found something never seen before in Europe: an Iron Age shield made entirely from tree bark. It was created sometime between 395 and 255 BC, and at first sight, it seemed impossible that something so light could have survived a real battle. For years, historians believed bark shields, if they existed at all, were probably made for ceremonies or religious offerings rather than warfare. This discovery challenged that idea. Although the shield had been damaged after ending up in a pit used for watering livestock, it had already been in use for more than a decade before it was thrown away. Experimental archaeologists later built replicas and tested them in combat. To their surprise, the bark absorbed heavy blows and even stopped arrows while weighing far less than traditional shields. It was also painted with a distinctive red and white checkered pattern. Today, many researchers believe bark shields may once have been common among poorer Iron Age warriors, with most examples simply disappearing as the wood slowly decayed. Number 10. The hunger stones of Europe. When water levels dropped too low, it meant famine, economic decline, and death. The hunger stones are physical reminders of those desperate years. Long before weather forecasts and modern science, people relied on the rivers to tell them what was coming. When the water disappeared, they knew difficult times were close behind. To make sure no one forgot, they left warnings on stones that would only become visible when the rivers fell to dangerously low levels again. During one of Europe's worst droughts in more than 500 years, many of those warnings appeared once more. Some were found along the Rhine, Weser, and Moselle rivers, while others were found on the banks of the Elbe River in the Czech city of Dn, near the German border. One of the most famous simply says, "When you see me, weep," a message thought to have been carved in 1616. Another, besides Germany's Spree River, remembers the drought of 1417. These are not just stones, they still carry centuries of fear, warning, and human suffering. Number 9. Sutton Hoo Well. No discussion of Britain's ancient past can ever be complete without Sutton Hoo. Sitting near the coast of Suffolk, this burial site completely changed what historians thought they knew about Anglo-Saxon England. The site contains 2 cemeteries from the 6th and 7th centuries, but one discovery stood above everything else. Archaeologists uncovered the remains of an enormous ship burial. something so extraordinary that it was first thought to belong to the Vikings. Later studies proved it was Anglo-Saxon, making it one of the most important archaeological discoveries ever made in Britain. The site also produced hundreds of remarkable artifacts, including the famous Sutton Hoo helmet, weapons, jewelry, and decorated objects that revealed the wealth and craftsmanship of the period. One plaque even shows a horse trampling an enemy warrior, while another burial contained the remains of a man laid to rest beside his horse with his weapons. Before Sutton Hoo, many believed this period was little more than Britain's so-called Dark Ages. After its discovery, that idea became much harder to defend. Number 8. The Written Rock of Gelt in the early 3rd century AD. Roman soldiers working in a quarry in Cumbria decided to leave something behind besides stone for Hadrian's Wall. While cutting rock for the massive frontier, they carved names, messages, and drawings into the quarry face. Centuries later, in the 1500s, the carvings were rediscovered by antiquarian William and his friend Julius. This place then became known as the Written Rock of Gelt, and was recorded many times throughout the 1700s and 1800s. Sadly, many of the inscriptions were never properly copied, and years of erosion have since erased parts of them forever. The quarry remained open to visitors until the pathway collapsed during the 1980s, leaving the site almost impossible to reach. Archaeologists from Newcastle University later descended nearly 9 meters or 30 feet into the quarry to record what remained before more of it disappeared. They created detailed 3D models so future historians could continue studying the inscriptions. Among the carvings are the names of Roman soldiers, the names of their officers, a funny sketch of one commander, and, rather predictably, a carved penis. Number 7. Stonehenge is so famous that most people think it is the only one of its kind. But along the coast of Norfolk, another ancient monument waited beneath the sand for thousands of years. It's called Seahenge and was built entirely from oak timbers and originally stood in shallow coastal water, making it one of Britain's most unusual prehistoric sites. At its center stood the upturned stump of a single oak tree, surrounded by a ring of wooden posts carefully arranged into a circle. Studies later showed that the timber came from trees cut down in 2 different years, with the central stump coming first and the surrounding posts added the following year. The wood itself dates to around 4050 BC, making it older than many of Britain's best-known monuments. Archaeologists eventually removed the timbers for conservation and study, a decision that sparked considerable controversy because many people wanted the monument left where it had stood for thousands of years. So, why was it built? Or what ceremonies once took place inside this circle? Number 6. The Rollright Stones. The Rollright Stones sound like something taken from an old legend, and in many ways, they do. This monument near the border of Oxfordshire and Warwickshire is made up of 3 separate groups known as the King's Men, the King's Stone, and the Whispering Knights. Each belongs to a different period, meaning the site was not created all at once. The Whispering Knights are the oldest, forming a Neolithic burial chamber built between 3800 and 3500 BC. The Lone King's Stone dates back to around 2500 BC, while the famous King's Men stone circle was added much later, around 1500 BC during the early or Middle Bronze Age. Every one of the monuments was built from Oolitic limestone, a Jurassic rock brought from the nearby Cotswold Hills. Generations added to the landscape instead of replacing what had already been there, turning the area into a place that remained important for thousands of years. Protective barriers now help preserve the King's Stone and Whispering Knights, but the reason they were first raised has never been settled. Number 5. The Curedale Hoard. When it comes to buried treasure, what comes to your mind? Pirates? Secret maps? A chest filled with gold? Well, Britain has a real buried treasure story, and it is even more incredible. On May 15, 1840, workers repairing the embankment along the River Ribble at Coordale, near Preston, struck something unexpected. Buried beneath the ground was a huge lead chest, and inside it sat the largest Viking hoard ever discovered in the British Isles. More than 8,600 objects were packed inside, including silver coins, ingots, jewelry, and other valuable metal artifacts collected by the Vikings. The discovery quickly attracted attention. The landowner's bailiff secured the hoard before it was claimed as the property of Queen Victoria in right of her Duchy of Lancaster. Most of the collection was later placed in the care of the British Museum, although the workers who found it were rewarded with a single coin each for their efforts. Who buried this enormous fortune, and why was it never reclaimed, are questions that still baffle historians. Number 4. The London shipwreck warships are usually remembered for the battles they fought. The London became famous because it never reached one. In 1665, the English warship accidentally exploded and sank off Southend-on-Sea, Essex, where the wreck still rests in 2 sections on the seabed. Only 5 years earlier, the same ship had sailed as part of the fleet that brought King Charles II back from the Netherlands, restoring him to the English throne. Time and the sea slowly began destroying the wreck, with powerful currents and wood-eating marine worms threatening to erase it forever. Between 2014 and 2015, teams from Historic England, Cotswold Archaeology, and licensed divers recovered whatever they could before it was lost. Their work brought thousands of lost objects back to the surface, including musket balls, metal ingots, and navigational instruments once used aboard the ship. But the most amazing find was an exceptionally well-preserved wooden gun carriage. Experts think it is the only surviving example from this period ever found. Number 3. The Maiden Castle castles usually make people think of knights, kings, and the Middle Ages. Maiden Castle belongs to a much older chapter of Britain's story. Near Dorchester, this enormous Iron Age hill fort covered an area roughly equal to 50 football fields, making it the largest of its kind ever found in Britain. Most of what survives today was built during the 1st century BC, although the hill had already been crucial for thousands of years. Excavations found an Iron Age cemetery where many of the skeletons still carried terrible battle wounds, showing just how brutal life could be. Beneath parts of the hill fort, archaeologists also found the remains of a Neolithic enclosure dating to around 3500 BC, proving the site had been used long before the fort was built. Centuries later, during Roman rule, a 4th century Ad temple appeared on the same hill. The huge chalk ramparts, once bright white and visible from miles away, protected a settlement that may have been home to hundreds of people. It's, in simple words, a masterpiece of ancient Britain. Number 2. The Bloomberg tablets. These Roman-made tablets might not bring curses or hidden treasure, but they have something far more valuable: the actual words of people who lived nearly 2,000 years ago. The Bloomberg tablets were discovered during the construction of Bloomberg LP's European headquarters on Queen Victoria Street in London. Archaeologists found 405 wooden writing tablets, originally coated with black wax and written on with a metal stylus. The wax itself had long disappeared, but the pressure left by the writing remained impressed into the wood. That was enough for experts to recover dozens of detailed Roman messages. Their survival was a little short of extraordinary. The tablets had been buried beneath waterlogged mud left behind by the Walbrook River, an ancient stream that once flowed through Londinium before disappearing beneath the modern city. The oxygen-poor conditions slowed decay and preserved the wood for centuries. Among the writings were personal letters, financial records, and contracts for the delivery of goods. One tablet even contains one of the earliest known written references to Londinium, giving historians an unusually personal look into everyday Roman life in Britain. Number 1. The magnificent Orkney Temple. Long before the Orkney Islands became a quiet corner of Britain, they were home to one of the greatest settlements of the Iron Age. Even today, archaeologists cannot agree on what its largest building was actually used for. Known as Structure 10, the building stretched about 82 feet long and 65 feet wide. Its walls were more than 5 meters, or 16 feet thick, and sections still stand over a meter high today. Despite its huge size, the central chamber measured only about 20 feet across because another massive wall surrounded it from the inside. A large fire pit stood at the center, while stone dresser-like furniture lined the interior, although nobody knows what those structures were used for. The roof was built from carefully shaped square stone tiles, and a paved passage appears to have circled the building between the inner and outer walls. Painted stones scattered across the floors, including one engraved with the image of the sun, have led many experts to believe the site had a religious purpose. Some even argue it was a meeting place for powerful local leaders. In reality, it's still a puzzle. That's all from us. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.